Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? Welcome back to Farming Simulator 19 here in Erlengrat. When it comes to building new tracks, would you build new tracks? Would the players decide to build a new railway line, or would railway lines be pre-existing and then you can run the trains on the railway lines, but you can't go and just build new tracks? Or maybe you could build new tracks and it has to have, maybe there's a government thing, so it could be a player-run decision to run it. Okay, we've got this one over here. If I get rid of that for a second. So there is all kinds of different bits that could be done. So I've done that on field 25. I just want to see how much I actually got done. Oh, I missed a little bit up the top end. But he seems to be quite happy with what we have done here. And there's no complaints about the lack of everything being finished. So we will just say that that job is finished. And we're going to head down to the bottom. Now, fortunately, we own this field. And we have only just finished the hay in here. Which means that we can take a shortcut straight down across the field. And we can go out onto the road down here. Like that. We will buy a bag of fertilizer. That's all we can fit. We could buy 2 bags, but we wouldn't quite fit all of the second bag into the spreader, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave part bags over at the dealership, so we will just buy 1 bag full, and then that will definitely be enough to cover us for doing the other job. You also have things like road sweepers, bin men, postmen. See, I don't know about a postman. I don't know if that... I don't like the idea of posts sort of relying on players for deliveries, because I think that could just end up going horribly wrong. I think that bit may not work very well. But there is... I want to go to this bit, don't I? There we go. Like rubbish collection and things like that. I reckon that could be done by players and it could work fairly well, and it would be the same as a lot of the other bits. If there aren't players online doing it at the time, then the job gets done automatically by NPCs. So it's still, everything still functions even if the players don't take over and do it, but the players can take over and do it in order to be able to earn some money. And what were some of the other ideas that were being sort of bandied around and talked about just to start with? I mean, a lot of you just said you really, really love the idea of the ultimate simulator game and all the different things you could do in it. And something that I was personally wondering about was whether you would have personal stats. So, do you have to eat and drink and sleep in order to maintain your character? Do you get tired, or is it like, a lot of games you just don't get tired, like, the game we're playing right now. You don't get tired, you don't have to eat, you don't have to drink, you don't have to worry about any of those things, but, I mean, maybe you should have to worry about those things. Maybe you should have to consume a set amount of water each day, stuff like that. So, yeah, then you'd have to, actually carry the water around. Could you go, take a pickaxe, go to any particular place and start digging a hole in order to try and find riches? In theory, it can be done in real life, if you can go and find somewhere to dig, but, I mean, usually you've got to buy the mineral rights. You've got to go and buy a piece of land in order to be able to do any mining. But, would you be able to do that? What would the landscape look like if anybody could just go and dig anywhere? Would there be wild parts of the countryside where you not only could go and do a bit of digging, and you could do a bit of, maybe felling trees and stuff like that, although I'm not sure if felling trees you don't own should be a thing or not, but you could go hunting. Like, you could find a wild area and you could go hunting, and then you could bring the meat and the skins back to civilization in order to sell them. that is still a way to make a viable living in certain places in the world. Not as much anymore as it used to be, obviously, but there is still people who make a living doing stuff like that. There's also people that they don't necessarily make a living out of it, they live off of it. So they don't do it for money, they just do it for the meat, and then they use the skins for various different things. A lot of people who do tend to live like that, the skins are something that they would sell as opposed to use as much, but I mean, skins are still used in certain places in the world quite a lot, to the point where they wouldn't necessarily be selling very many of them. So anyway, there would be kind of like options there that you could do, I guess. I don't know how far you'd run it. And then what were other things? I mean, you obviously got cars and that you can drive around. There was law and order and crime, and whether or not that would be something that could work. Whether crime could be a part of the game, whether player-run punishments for crimes could be a thing, whether it could work. I mean, I guess if you want to sort of put it like real life, then yeah, you could waltz up to someone else's farm and start up their tractor and drive it off. But then, if you were to do that, then there would have to be a way for the player that owns that vehicle to not only have a bit of retribution for that, either, you know, personal retribution, which, if we're making a big simulator game, wouldn't necessarily be a good idea, because we'd want more a law and order type approach. So it would be more along the lines of the player whose item gets stolen. If they've got insurance, then, you know, then they could just get a new one. If they haven't got insurance, it's down to finding who took it. Now, maybe you can pay for a tracker on your tractor so that you can see where it's been taken, and then you can find the player who caught it, who stole it. So, and then you can catch them, and then maybe there'll be a punishment for that player. Now, I've played games where there are punishments for crimes. Some of them include a monetary punishment. Some of them like Arcade actually was one that had a criminal system, and in Arcade, if you stole something, you could end up going to prison for a set amount of time. You got put into the prison and you wore something different. You didn't have your normal stuff that was in your bag, so you couldn't really do anything. And then you could sort of mess around in the prison for a little while. If you got bored with that, then you would break out and... well, there were ways to break out, and then you could just sort of wander around as a prisoner for a while and have a little bit of fun. The thing with the game, with the justice system, was that there was a jury for it, and it was the players who decided whether or not a player went to prison. So the crime would be there. So if you caught the person stealing your tractor, if you found them with the tractor, there'd be evidence, and you could basically, there was an option, and you could say, right, this person needs to go to prison, they stole this off of me. And then that would be logged, and then the player in question would be automatically arrested, I think. I can't really remember how it worked. But you would be removed from the game. You couldn't do anything else until such time as you went to court. And the court was run by the players. And you could sign up for jury duty if you wanted to. And then the person who'd committed a crime, their crime would be displayed, and they would have a chance to defend themselves for a couple of minutes, so they could say, you know, what they did or why they did it, what their reasons were, and then you had to decide whether or not you bought those reasons and you liked it, or you thought that perhaps they deserved a bit of time in a cell to think about what they'd done. twice in the game I stole some items and I went to prison for it. Another time I stole some, it was a small item, and I managed to say the right things when I had my court case being presented, and they decided that time that I was going to be let off for free. So I didn't go to prison one time, and then twice I did go to prison, and I spent a bit of time in prison. Depending on the severity of the crime, depended entirely on what would happen to you once you'd been arrested. Right. I know there's a little strip up the side of this one as well, but the job is saying completed. Everything is saying done on there, so we're going to leave that, and we're going to go on to the next one. I need to go out down here, and we're going to go over to field 6. The farmer is saying, no, he's really happy with that. Contract complete. And I don't really want to waste the fertilizer. That's why I'm not going up and doing that little narrow. And so it really is about the width of the tractor. So that's why it's not really worth doing. I don't think it's going to benefit anyone if I do that. Like normally I say, right, I do want to actually complete everything. But this one is literally about the width of the tractor. And I'm not sure that it's beneficial to anyone to go and do that. So there could be a crime and justice system built into our Ultimate Simulator game that we've been talking about. There could be a way to do that, similar to how the arcade one worked, where if you do get caught, so if you get seen stealing something, then a player can report you stealing it. They've only got a set amount of time to do it. Now, obviously, with a modern type simulator game, we wouldn't necessarily just be looking at catching a player doing it and then reporting them like that. I own a tractor, I go offline, I come back later and I find someone's managed to hotwire the tractor and steal it. So you can't just walk up, jump in and drive off. You've got to specifically have the tools to be able to do it. So that would be the first bit. You know, you've got to buy the tools in order to be able to do this stealing, and then you've got to actively go and steal machine, and so there would be places that you'd be able to offload a machine if you've stolen it. You'd have a set amount of time, I guess, before it stopped being hot property, or you could take it to a chop shop so someone could run an illegal chop shop. But there'd have to be consequences for things like that. So I personally not sure how you could fit such a system into the game. That the basic idea, I steal a tractor, maybe there wouldn't be a chop shop, maybe you wouldn't have those layers of criminal enterprise hidden beneath the surface. So maybe for the Ultimate Simulator game, if you can steal a tractor, you take it to a chop shop, which is an NPC thing, and then they get rid of it. So you'd still have me as the owner. I would still have a set amount of time to be able to identify at least where it had been taken, and then, you know, potentially get my vehicle back. How the player could get away with it that had done the stealing, I don't really know. I mean, maybe an identification chip on a tractor is going to cost me 5,000 euros, whereas an old tractor is only going to cost me 2,000 euros. So is it worth the bother? So the player who's doing the stealing might think, well, actually, it's worth stealing this one because of the low value involved, so it's not likely to have a tracking chip, and therefore it's not likely to get caught. So me as the owner, I've got 24 hours in-game or 24 real-life hours to get back on the game and then find my tractor has been stolen, and then trace the tracking chip. So if I can trace the tracking chip, I can get my tractor back, or at least I can have justice done one way or another. I really don't know. That could be a really good system to implement, but it could also be incredibly complicated and frustrating if it wasn't done right. It could be really, really complicated, and a system like that has the potential to make or break a game, I think. I think that would be the key to it. Like, it literally has the potential to either make or break the game. It could go either way. If it made the game, absolutely fantastic. That would be brilliant. If it could make the game, yes, that would be fantastic. It would be awesome. But obviously then you've got the potential that it could break the game as well. And a mechanic like that is not thought through very, very carefully could very easily break something. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, the time in prison in Arcade, if you went to prison, you went to prison for, I think it was about 20 minutes, half an hour. Sometimes your prison sentence could be an hour, maybe even 2 hours online, depending on the severity of the crime. So I only went to prison for like 20 minutes at a time. And it's boring enough doing 20 minutes in a prison cell. Like, you can get out of the prison cell and you can go around the yard and there's a couple of small mini games to do, but they don't take very long and then they're quite boring. And you literally cannot do anything else. There is a way to tunnel out of the prison so you can try and escape. And if you're able to escape, that's great. You can start running around and doing stuff. But you still can't go and pick anything up. You still can't do anything else with it. You can't go and participate in the game as normal, even if you manage to escape from prison. And you've still got to watch out for the guards. So, if you commit a crime in the game, there is an actual in-game punishment. And that punishment is you go to prison. And the prison is dull. If you commit a serious crime, you could go to prison for an hour or more. And then you just got to sit there for an hour, not really able to do anything. And you can't go offline and do it. And also, the ultimate sting in the tail on the prison system is that the timer in-game is set to about 5 minutes. So if you go AFK, that's the AFK timer. So if you don't move for 5 minutes, then you're classed as AFK. It might actually be less than 5 minutes. It might be 3 minutes or something like that. But you're AFK if you don't move for a few minutes. And then it flags you as AFK. Now, the prison thing, if you're online but AFK, the prison timer doesn't tick down. Right? That's how savage it is. So you really got to want to steal something if you're going to do it in that game. Because otherwise, what you'd end up doing, you could sit AFK, you'd be online for 4 hours, and your 20-minute timer wouldn't move at all. If you go offline, the 20-minute timer doesn't move. You've got to be online and playing the game. So your character has to be moving around. So, I mean, maybe keep an eye on the screen, and then you move it every now and then. Once it flags up as AFK, move your character a little bit so it stops, and then the counter keeps going, the timer keeps going. But other than that, nothing else is happening. You are going to be doing your time in prison, and you're going to be doing it online. So it's a deterrent to stop people. I mean, everybody in that game, you know, gets arrested, goes to prison at least once so they can find out what it's like. But you quickly realize after doing your first 20-minute stint that it's not as fun as you think it might be. It's a little bit dull. It's designed to be a little bit dull because it stops people from stealing from everybody. You go and steal a whole load of stuff. I did see people get sent to prison for more than an hour, and that means that you then got to spend an hour online in prison, or at least escape from prison, wandering around. But you can't do anything if you escape from prison but you're still officially classed as in prison. You can't pick anything up at all. You can't go gathering resources, you can't go fishing, you can't do anything at all apart from just walk around. That is it. You can't do gardening, you can't interact with anything you own in any way. You're in prison. That's it. That's all you're doing. You can talk to other people. You can't even, like, the arcade has got instruments that you can play, which is something I would love to see in any kind of simulator game. But You can't even play instruments. If you're in prison, you ain't playing instruments, you ain't doing anything. You're not even playing the spoons. You are just stuck and bored. So if you've got a 4-hour prison sentence, you are not getting back to regular gameplay until you have sat at your computer for 4 hours making sure your character isn't AFK, so that your prison sentence ticks down and you get it done. And people who input with doing extra inputs from other keys and so on, so that, I don't know, even if you just hold down the run key and run into a wall for a while, it's usually a way to get round an AFK thing. That doesn't worry. It didn't work in Arcade. At least at one point it didn't work. I don't know if it was changed, but you couldn't do that. It would still detect that you hadn't changed your input for quite a while, and therefore it would mark you as AFK again. So that system, if done right, can work really well. Like, you can't also, it's not possible to false flag someone for stealing, right? You go to commit a crime, and the game itself does actually give you a warning. It says you are about to commit a crime. You will become a wanted criminal for X amount of time. If anybody sees you and reports you while you're a wanted criminal, then I think it was if someone sees you and reports you, but you've got to be within a certain distance of the player in order to be able to see them and be able to report them. Also, I believe there was a thing with the guards as well. If a guard seen you while you were wanted, you would automatically be... There we go. You would automatically be sent to the justice system. So we're going to have our bunker silo covered, 300,000 litres of silage in there. I will take this one back, and then we'll go and get the electric tractor. I'm going to stop that one. We'll go and get the electric tractor. Actually, I'm going to leave our roller here, because this is where we'll be using it from now on. Yeah, you'd be thrown into the criminal justice system, and then that would be that. So there would be an incentive to not go and steal. If you stole a lot... Because the players didn't decide the sentence. They only decided if you were guilty versus not guilty. That was their decision. That was the player decision. You could choose to be on jury duty if you wanted to. It's a really popular thing, though. I don't think I ever actually got on jury duty, or maybe I did once or twice. I definitely tried to. I don't remember. I think I did get onto jury duty, but I know how it worked. And you then got to, if you were on the jury duty, you decided whether or not the player was guilty or not guilty. It was up to you to then decide. So they would spin their tail as to why they'd done it, and then you decide guilty or not guilty. So depending on what crime had been committed would depend on the sentence that would be issued. So some players would steal one item. You know what? I just couldn't help it. It was there. It was worth a lot of money. I've never done it before, and so the jury might say, all right, I'll tell you what, we'll let you off this one time. Another player might be there, oh, well, I didn't really have a choice, you know, I was hungry, I wanted to feed my family, and it was done out of desperation. And then you look at the charge sheet, and it's like they've attacked guards, they've attacked other players, because that was one thing I think you could get a prison sentence for. They've stolen a whole load of stuff. You know, they got a long rap sheet of crimes that they've committed. And it's like, yeah, you didn't just do this as a one-off to feed your family, did you, mate? You did. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and then you went and lied to the jury about it as well. So yeah, we're sending you to prison, and then that player has to spend the next 90 minutes in prison trying to just while away the time until they can finally get out again. And it's not fun, it's not exciting, and so but it's a career choice. It's a choice that they went and made. Something like that, I reckon, could be done really well. Like, it worked well in that game. I thought it was really good, the way that the whole system worked, and therefore seeing it in something like our Ultimate Sim game that we've been talking about, I think it could work. I do. I really think it could work. But from the other side of the coin, you've also got to look at the victims of the crimes involved. So if a person has had something stolen, is there a way to get that back? Is there a way for them to be compensated for what's being stolen? Is there a sufficient difficulty for the player doing the stealing to discourage them from doing that in the first place? And then if they are able, so obviously if you're going to bring this mechanic into the game, it does need to be able to be successful as well. What's the balance in it? Like I said about, you get insurance, and maybe you could have tracking chips on the tractors, so if I log back in, I find my tractor's been stolen, I can basically say my tractor's been stolen, it's got this tracking chip on it, and then that can be traced back, they'll find where the tractor is, and then the last player to touch my tractor, so long as I'm within a set number of hours. So if I don't log on for 3 days and my stuff was stolen right at the start, then they're not going to find the player who did it. So the player gets away with it. If I've got tracking chips, I can get my stuff recovered, so I can get my belongings back. Or I could have insurance, and then that could be returned to me as well. But it's not necessarily going to be an easy thing to do to go and steal the tractor in the first place. Now, this isn't just tractors. Like, this is the Ultimate Sim game, isn't it? So we can't just talk about tractors when we talk about this. We must also talk about people breaking into the restaurant where you go and get your food and stealing small items from in there. How is that dealt with? Like, how does the player know that they've had things stolen from them? Is there security cameras keeping an eye on it and watching to make sure that everything is above board and all tickety-boo? Or, so maybe the player knows that he's had stuff stolen. Can he get insurance for such occasions? There's a lot of questions to be answered on there. So a criminal justice system has the potential to be very, very good. It also has the potential to cause all kind of problems. So I don't really know which would be a good way of making it work. I just know that I think it could potentially be a very, very cool system to have in there. How well it would work, I don't really know. That would kind of be down, I guess, to players and devs to ultimately design the whole thing and figure all of those little questions out. But I see no real reason why it wouldn't work. I see no reason why it couldn't be a success, something like that. Okay, let me just back out of his way. Quite keen, that driver right there. So, yeah, that could be something that could be quite interesting, having a whole system. Unfortunately, folks, that is all we have got time for today. A massive thank you to everybody who has earned their way into the Great Book of Names. To find out some more details about all the names coming past, please head into the description and click on the link to the Discord. It's a link to another video. The link is on the other video. Please also consider checking out the links there for Nitrado, who provide gaming servers for games like Farming Simulator, Minecraft, Ark, and several others. And there's also Fanatical, who will help support your gaming habit by providing you with cheap games and also giving me a small commission on anything that you buy using my link. If you've enjoyed this particular video, then please head down below and give us a like. And if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to come and watch as well. That would be awesome. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.